Hey there, Danielle Matthews here. I'm coming to you live from Florida. Today is Monday, so it is book club day. And for those of you that are new to my content, I love helping entrepreneurs, business owners, driven professionals to level up in their business. And I have found some spiritual principles that have helped me to create an international business, and I love helping others do the same. So one of the things that I think is key is continuing to feed your mind and continuing to grow mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And you may as well physically as well. Keep yourself healthy. So we are reading The Power of Now. If you're not already in my Telegram channel, it's called Enlightened Minds. That's where we stay connected week to week about this and the book club that we're all in. Book club members that are here live, when you join in, when you get here, please just put your name in the comments. Let me know that you're here. And this is something you can jump in and out of. So yes, we're reading a book, but this book, honestly, you could just have one conversation on one page, one paragraph for eternity. This book was recommended to me by someone that said to me, Danielle, if there was one book that you only had a choice of one book your entire life that you could read, this is that book. This is the one book that you should read in your lifetime. And I said, okay, with an endorsement like that, I'm in. So it has not disappointed. We are currently on chapter 3, and we read up to, at least in my version, we read up to page 49. So we had about 10 pages. Hey Lou, good to see you. Yes, guys, when you're here, hey Tina, good to see you. Let me know that you've joined, because we got a lot to cover. This book, I swear, it's so good. We also had talked about yoga therapy. So he talked about the pain body, and this is something I've spent a lot of time studying. I've gotten certified in yoga therapy. I do privates. I'm going to be launching a program here soon, because to me, this is the transformational space. This is where you go beyond the mind. Like he says, the first thing in this chapter, the problems of the mind cannot be solved on the level of the mind. This is where yoga therapy goes. This is where what he talks about, the pain body, like the problem is in the pain body. It's something that's gotten lodged, an emotional event that's gotten lodged in our system, and how do you release it? So this is an ancient technique that I came across. So the yoga therapy, guys, we'll need at least 10 people for me to block the time to do it for a group, free. We'll need at least 10 people. And so I'll create an event somehow and figure out how we can get RSVPs and make sure we've got at least 10. But this is something that everybody in book club for sure should do. And those of you listening or catching the replay, let me know if you're interested so I can get the details out about that. But hey, Karen, happy Monday. Hey, Christy. All right, let's dive in. So this chapter was called Moving Deeply into the Now. It's like every spiritual practice, right? They tell you now, in the moment, that's being present, that's the key. But the trick is, like, how do you even get there? Because your mind is, it's always in the way. So I think this is the best quote. I read it, I'm going to read it again. The problems of the mind cannot be solved on the level of the mind. How many times have you tried to? And we're like pursuing things and doing things, and it's at the level of the mind. Tina says, count me as one of the 10. Perfect. Perfect. You are counted, Tina. So he says, for so many people, a large part of their sense of self is intimately connected with their problems. And the last thing they want is to become free of them. That would mean the loss of their self. The mind itself is not dysfunctional. It's a wonderful tool. Dysfunction sets in when you seek yourself in it and mistake it for who you are. It then becomes the egoic mind and takes over your whole life. Tell me if this is true. Christy's one and awesome. So we got 2 out of 10. Tell me if you've seen this to be true. I work a lot with ASEA. Many of you know me through that vein. And I have come across people where it's like this solution to their health is sitting right there, open arms, right? They can just walk into it, but they don't. And it's almost because you get this sense of like, you're not sure they actually want to get better because they're so identified with their health challenge. Now, this is not everyone. I'm not making a blanket statement. I'm just saying I have worked with thousands of people over the last couple of years, and there are people that are so identified with their ailment that they're not sure who they are without it, because it has defined maybe the last decade of their life, maybe things since childhood. This is what kind of happens. I think this illustrates the point that Eckhart Tolle is making, And just put a 1 in the chat. Is anybody with me? Has anyone else witnessed this? Because I think it's important when we can see it in others, I think it then makes you go, like, not from a judgmental space, like, oh, I wonder if this is within me too. And maybe it's not about, okay, lots of 1s. Okay. So maybe it's not about health, but can you see how you can identify with other aspects of you? Like, I think this is why they call it like empty nesters with people whose, kids have left the house. Well, for so long, typically it's the mom has identified herself as the mom. And so when the kids leave after 18 years, well, who is she then? Because she's been so identified with that, with what she's constructed in her mind as, who she is. But she's actually so much more than a mother. So it's interesting to just reflect on that. And I wanted to actually skip because we're going to go backwards, back to where we were. But there were some questions, and I want to take some time with you guys now to figure out if you see these patterns in yourself. Okay, so what I think we'll do, put a 5, kind of like raising your hand or high-fiving me, right? You'll put a 5 in the chat if you see yourself doing this. So, are you always trying to get somewhere other than where you are now? Put a 5. If maybe it's not all the time, but you find yourself, like you've caught yourself in these moments before. I have, where I'm just like constantly trying to achieve a goal. And so that goal is the thing that's always on my mind. And I'm not like celebrating the now. I'm like trying to blow through the now to get to what I want. Anyone else? Karen's high-fiving me. Karen's like, yep. Who? Christy, yes, I know. You and I. Who is that? Susie? Susie, is that your name? Sometimes on Instagram, the handles are so funny. I can't actually see. But I think that salud, does that mean health? Health of Susie? Let me know if I'm right. I'm working on Spanish. All right. Is most of your doing just a means to an end? This is true for me. Is most of your doing just a means to an end? It's like, oh, I'm trying to do this thing so that I can arrive at my peace, so that I can arrive at wherever it is that I think this destination in the future that has all of the answers for me. Anyone else? Yes, Juliet and Tina. Like, yeah. I had a teacher one time, one of my spiritual teachers, Kamini Desai. She said, so many people, even in their being, they do it in the name of doing. Like, think about that. So do you rest so that you can do more? Do you meditate, perhaps sometimes, so that you're set up to be able to do more? That hit home for me because I'm like, man, I'm one of these people that, yeah, for a long time in my life, it was really all about that. Next one, is fulfillment always just around the corner or confined to short-lived pleasures like sex, food, drinking, drugs, or thrills and excitement? Is it always like, oh, just, I can get it when I do this, and then I have it for a moment? Anyone? He made comment, I think it was this chapter, about people that like to mountain climb and do these higher risk activities. And I was reading it and I went, oh my gosh, I used to love snowboarding. And it's it was because of the thrill and the excitement that I got while I was riding, and I was forced into the now, but it's like a riskier behavior. I also got very hurt many times doing that. Are you always focused on becoming, achieving, and attaining, or alternatively, chasing some new thrill or pleasure? Do you find yourself always in the process and never arriving? You're always going after the next thing. Juliet says, my previous version did that. Yes, me too. Christy says, yep, that got me too. All right. Do you believe that if you acquire more things, you will become more fulfilled, you'll be then good enough, or you will be psychologically complete? I feel like everybody better be high-fiving on that one. I think that is our Western society. I read that and I went, man, I've got friends that are when I get this degree, then I'll be complete. Then they get the degree and they're like, nope, when I get this job. Then they get that job and they're like, nope, I need to do this job so that my resume has this on it. And it's like this constant, like the goalpost is constantly moving. You know, I will be good enough when I have a house that, you know, people look at and think, oh my gosh, she's so lucky, right? It's interesting. Are you waiting for a man or a woman to give meaning to your life? I see this in a lot of people. They think, oh, I'll be complete when I have the right partner. You know? No, you're complete as you are. It is inside of you. I thought this was really super interesting to kind of reflect. I love it when there's these questions that are like so applicable to like the day-to-day, the stuff that pops up in our mind all the time. And, you know, we have to navigate. And he's like basically calling out all the things that we do that are mind stuff. Like, that's mind stuff. And I love what he said is that, like, the way to resolve this is simply to witness it. Marie says, this is how I used to think. Yeah, constantly in a pursuit. Constantly in a pursuit. So he says, just as the moon has no light of its own, but can only reflect the light of the sun, so are past and future only pale reflections of light, power, and reality of eternal present. The reality is borrowed from the now. Once you realize that everything is in this moment, suddenly everything feels alive, it radiates energy, and it just emanates beingness. I agree, Charlotte. This is a very good chapter. Yeah, it really was like, to me, very, very practical of like, oh, this is what's going on in my day-to-day life. This is why I was pursuing those things. This is why most humans are. Most of society is. We're all caught up in this. And I was really surprised. Like, I wasn't expecting him to say that the biggest issue is time. Was anyone else surprised by that? I get it now that he said it, but I've always said, like, oh no, the biggest issue in life is the ego. Like, that's the biggest issue. It's the mind. And he says, no, it's time. And it makes sense because the ego, the mind, only exists because of time. I just found that, like, really shocking. And this quote is on page 44. Time is what keeps the light from reaching us. There is no greater obstacle to God than time. This was from Rumi. Past and future veil God from our sight. Burn up both of them with fire. Like, I have never seen so much written about time, and I didn't understand this clock time for psychological time and like all of this. Yeah, agreed. It's a super key point to understand what he's saying about time. And, you know, when you can get into the timelessness that is now, which is like your mind, I don't know, my mind kept buffeting with this concept. It was like, wait, I get it, I don't get it. Like, what's he saying? But that is, you know, that is the greatest obstacle. So let's go. I think page 47 was where he really got into, well, before we go there, shoot, page 45. The whole thing was so good. On page 45, this is where he talks about like what you need to do to get out of the mind chatter, right? The way to get past all of that stuff. He says, the moment you realize you are not present, now you are present. I'm just pausing there for you to accept that, like, that's all you need to do. The moment you realize you are not present, now you are present. Because the witness jumped in, and all of a sudden it went, oh, the mind's over here, and it should be here. Now you're present again. Yep, watch, feel, observe. Exactly, Charlotte. Watch, feel, observe. He says, whenever you are able to observe your mind, you are no longer trapped in that mind. Okay? When it's chattering away, it doesn't mean the chatter stops. I think there's some, I don't know, I thought for a long time in my, like, you know, endeavors that eventually the mind chatter would just go away and like all of the limiting thoughts and all the fears and all the everything goes away. But, you know, my neighbor is turning 91. He's been doing this his whole life. He is a literal guru. And, you know, he says all the time, I have spent my life, you know, trying to catch my tricky ego, and I still do. Because it still jumps in all the time, and it's sneaky. It gets excited about an accomplishment. It gets scared of doing a new thing, right? It's a sneaky little guy. Juliet says she underlined most of page 45. I did too. It's like the whole here, I'm like bracketing, writing. He says, another factor has come in, something that is not of the mind. It's the witnessing presence. Exactly right, Lou. It's that witnessing presence. When that comes in, you're experiencing the now. So be present as the watcher of your mind, of your thoughts and emotions, as well as your reactions in various situations. I think this is probably the best way to start. For me, this is how I started. I started to witness my reaction. And I wouldn't judge myself for the reaction, and I also wouldn't engage with my reaction. I would just go, isn't that curious? Why in the world am I angry right now? Why in the world am I feeling upset right now? Why in the world is that making me so happy? Like, I would witness my reaction to something. And when you witness the reaction, this is where you start to cultivate. It's almost like to me, it's like a muscle. Like, you start to just strengthen it because you're giving energy away from the mind and you're putting it into presence. And, we talked about, I don't remember what week it was, but we talked about like having these seeds in us that can get hit up against when the right weather pattern comes in. Do you remember that? Put a 1 if you remember that. And then when the weather is correct, that seed sprouts inside of us. So that seed might be self-worth. That seed might be fear of not being heard, fear of being abandoned. Anyone remembering this? Lynn's remembering it. Anyone else? Do I need to revisit this? Put a 2 if you want me to revisit it. Because this to me is the key. Like, this is how you start to apply on a day-to-day basis, and you use your life as like meditation in motion. You use it as a constant irritation to help you become present. Like, life is constantly situations, people, circumstances. It's constantly doing things that are kicking up against stuff inside of you, right? The right weather is happening so that the weeds sprout up. So now you can identify them. So Tina, like in a garden where you got to have the right nutrients and the right water and the right sun for a seed to sprout, inside of us, we have to have the right circumstances for something to get triggered, right? Most of the time, we're not walking around triggered all the time, all right? but we do get triggered, and it's like we blame the weather. We blame the situation, the person, the circumstance, and we say, because of you, I don't feel good. And the reality is that was just happening. You reacted to it in a way that made you not feel good. It takes a lot of self-responsibility. A lot of people are scared to go there. But once you do that, you witness the reaction. This is the gift. And this is what Eckhart Tolle is saying. Be present as the watcher of your mind, of your thoughts, emotions, as well as your reactions in various situations. Because this is your ability. This is like the secret doorway into being able to be present. It's like that trigger is the chance. It's the test for you to go, ooh, do I engage with what my mind has to say and my emotional response from whatever? Or do I just witness it and go, well, isn't that interesting that anger has arrived? Isn't that interesting that I'm scared right now? And you do not put the energy into it, right? It's going to be there, but it will pass. This is huge. He says, be at least as interested in your reactions as you are in the situation or person that causes you to react. Notice also how often your attention is in the past or is in the future. Right? And be fascinated with yourself, not frustrated with yourself. Do not get upset with yourself. It is not fair to get upset with yourself. Like, the first reaction is free. This is just a thing that's living in you. Right? If you engage with it, that's where your work is. Right? You need to work on not engaging. You need to work on being the witness and going, oh, that's there. All right, we need to resolve that thing. And you'll start to notice, like, similar things will trigger the same emotional kind of reaction in you. And that's where there's just something living inside of you that's unresolved. And this is where meditation and yoga therapy, all the things that, I've learned, this is what's been the key for me to unlock this stuff so that, I can stay in a higher vibrational state without having these things pull me down, or like not engaging with my reaction, which then just causes like a domino effect of other issues, because then you trigger the person and then they trigger you back, and then it's just a mess. This is just a test. Exactly. This is just a test. The trigger is just a test for you to go, am I able to just witness my reaction? Am I able to just be present? or is that thing going to take me on a wild ride? Right? Which is no fun. No fun. So have fun with this, right? This is life. I'm curious, what percentage of the time, well, this is probably different for all of us. How many of you feel like you spend most of your time thinking about the past? If that's you, put past. If you find that you spend most of your time thinking about the future, put future. I'm curious to know, because I've sort of switched. Like, I used to spend a lot of time thinking about the past, and then I cut that off. And then I probably spent too much time thinking about the future. And I sort of buff it between the two. Now I'm able to be more present. I at least think about, like, today. Christy says she finds her mind, going more in the future. Karen, Lou, future. Yeah, some people it's the past. You know, I see it in some, like, family members. I was just at a family reunion, so, like, they're top of mind. But I find a lot of people that, like, you know, they're living in the past. They've got all this stuff from the past that comes up often. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just interesting to reflect on what your mind chatter is doing. Like, where is your mind taking you? And then see what you can do to, you know, bring it back this way. Charlotte says future lots, but past also. Able to be much more present, but the future comes in a lot. A little of both. Future moving into the present. Nice. I think about the future more. Yeah, interesting. Most of you are saying future. That doesn't surprise me. Doesn't actually surprise me, I think. All right. So moving on to where he talks about time. I want to kind of define this because this is new to me. This is like a new way of looking at things. He says, clock time, I'm on page 47. Clock time is not just making an appointment or planning a trip. It includes learning from the past so that we don't repeat the same mistakes over and over, setting goals and working toward them, predicting the future by means of patterns and laws, physical and mathematical, and so on, learning from the past and taking appropriate action on the basis of our predictions. So what he was saying was that, because I was like, well, time's not bad. Right? We need time. Like, as I was reading this, I was like, what is he talking about? Like, you have to have time to function in this world. If we didn't have time, how would we all be here right now? You know, like, you've got to have time. And he's saying that there are, for practical living, there are things that time is useful for. It is practical to set goals. It is practical, you know, as he says, to be working towards something. It's practical to plan a trip or to set an appointment. Like, we have to have time for these reasons. But we get into trouble. He says, be alert as you practice this so that you do not unwittingly transform clock time into psychological time. And here is the nuance. For example, if you made a mistake in the past and learn from it now, you're using clock time, right? Every entrepreneur knows this. You have to fail your way forward. You have to make mistakes to learn the ropes to get where you want to go. Everybody in life knows this, not just entrepreneurs. He says, though, but on the other hand, if you dwell on it mentally, if you evoke self-criticism, remorse, or you allow guilt to come up, then you are making the mistake into me and mine. You make it part of your sense of self, and it has become now psychological time, which is always linked to a false sense of identity. Non-forgiveness necessarily implies a heavy burden of psychological time. So do you feel the difference where it pivots from, like, yes, it's like important to learn from the past. It's important to have known that we learned a certain lesson, maybe from a certain relationship, but it becomes not beneficial when you bring guilt or you bring that emotion maybe into the next relationship. It's like, nope. Lou says, balanced triad, near past, near future, and present. Oh, that's nice. I missed that comment before. So this is an interesting, I think, like, this is the crux of where don't bring your scars forward, right? Like, they remind you maybe of, like, oh, I learned this lesson, but you don't need to bring it. What did one of my friends, she always says this, Jerry, if you happen to see this, Jerry, hey. She always would say, what did she say? something about like leaving the baggage. Like, and Jerry, you're gonna have to tell me what, but she would basically say like, it's like you've learned something on a trip, like take the experience and leave the baggage, right? You don't need to bring all the baggage of the situation with you. You just need to like take the lessons and leave the baggage behind. It's the same thing he's saying. And I think a lot of people get stuck, like spirituality, at least I used to envision like, oh, you've got to like renounce yourself from life and you got to just go and be in a space where you're meditating and you're alone and, you're not of this world because you're doing other things. And what he's saying is like, no. And what my spiritual teacher says is no. There's what's called meditation in motion, right? This is where you take these principles into your daily life, and it is what allows your life to move with ease. It's what allows your business to grow with less effort. Because he says, like, if you set yourself a goal and work toward it, you are using clock time, and that's fine. Totally fine. You probably will get into trouble when you have an expectation of when it occurs, how it occurs, if it doesn't come to fruition. This is where you start to get into psychological time. He says, you are aware of where you want to go, but you honor and give your fullest attention to the step that you are taking in this present moment, right? This is where we want to go. That's the goal. I'm using clock time. But now I come right into today, the now, this moment, 12:25 a.m. on Monday the 28th. What can I do right now to move myself towards that goal? Like, you put it out there and then you say, okay, now I'm going to live in the now, knowing that that's the direction I'm going. It's kind of like you put your directions in the GPS, not the directions. You put the destination in the GPS, and then moment to moment to moment, you're doing the things to get you there, right? We trust it. It's like when we drive at night, when we plug it into Google Maps, we're like, all we can see is where our headlights go. But we trust because we've set the destination. We know, well, I'm going to make the right choice each step of the way as I continue down this road to ultimately get to my destination. And it's the same thing here. Feeling good, guys? This was such a good chapter. The whole book is really good. It's all really, really good. So he says, just don't get into the trouble where you don't see or smell the flowers along the way. And make sure you stay aware of the beauty and the miracle of life as it unfolds in front of you. Being there. Psychological time is a mental disease. Did it surprise anyone that he compared it to communism? I was like, where are we going with this? I did not expect like any political stuff to come in, but he says communism, socialism, rigid religious belief systems, these actually induce psychological time because they're making the assumption that the highest good lives in the future. And therefore, the ends justifies the means. Whereas like in communism, a lot of death, right? To get to like getting rid of this person so that we can get to this place. In religion too, right? It's like, oh, do good here so you can go to heaven. Super interesting. Super, super interesting where he's saying, no, this actually is inducing psychological time, and this is a problem because it's a problem of the mind, and the mind is not who you are. And so we need to avoid that. I thought this was pretty fabulous. So we will move into next week, page 49, for those of you that are on my same book. We'll basically just finish out chapter 3. So it takes us to page 58. So we'll finish out chapter 3 for next week. And Lou says, and then you can't think for yourself. Yeah. Yeah, if you're in those things we were talking about. I think monitor yourself, right? Just throughout the week. Just stop and come back to page 49, those questions, and just say, like, am I trying to get somewhere, or am I enjoying the now? Am I doing this just to get to the end, or am I enjoying the process of doing? Like cleaning, or like cleaning up the kitchen, or whatever. Like, so many times, I'll find myself like in agitation as I'm having to clean, because like all I want is the clean kitchen, but I really don't enjoy what it takes to get there, and it's like, stop that. That's psychological time. It's like, come into the present moment and just enjoy the water, enjoy all the beautiful things that we have, like enjoy these things, enjoy the smell of the soap, like whatever it is, be in the now, enjoying the process. And then ultimately, the goal is even better. It's like those little day-to-day things, like keep coming back to the questions, Am I feeling like what I'm after are short-term pleasures? You know, are you watching yourself pursue that? Are you eating the one thing because it makes you happy for about, 10 minutes after you eat it? Are you focused on just becoming and achieving and attaining? Or are you focused on the now? These are the things to kind of monitor. Do you believe that if you acquire more things, you'll become more fulfilled? Just watch yourself. I just went shopping, and it's like, yeah, shopping has this weird way of like, oh, I'm going to be so much happier now that I have these things. But it's like that happiness wears off very quickly. All right. But if you can enjoy the process, enjoy when you have the things that you have, be fine if they were to go away. Like, this is when you're in the present. So Charlotte is saying, I had to think about this a bit. Yes, we will enjoy the meditation. Count me in too. Oh yeah, nice. So there's more of you here now. The yoga therapy is very different. It's not exactly meditation. So yoga therapy is going to require you to need a wall, like some space. We're going to be doing some things. It's about an hour. It's different than the guided meditation that I did before. So I will be figuring out, like I said, I need at least 10 confirmed RSVPs if I'm going to set an hour aside to do this for you guys. I've seen at least 4 people say they're in, so we need to just get that number. Okay, there's 5. So we'll just get that number to 10, and we'll pick a time to do it. And what did Marie say? This was good to see where I am and what I think about during things. Yeah, it's like really nice. And don't be mean to yourself. Like, stop judging yourself. Just go, isn't that interesting? All right, find yourself. Be fascinated with yourself, not frustrated with yourself. All right. Robin says she's in. Wonderful. So we will get that figured out. We'll get a time set for all of that. In the meantime, chapter 3, finish it out this week. We'll meet together next week. In the Telegram chat, use that chat, guys. Reply to what's there. Tina, I appreciated you putting some stuff in there. Juliet, you as well. Just reply to things. Let us know because like the things you pull out might be different than from what I pull out. What is your link to the guided meditation? Tina, we did that via a live video, oh my gosh, many months ago. So it's somewhere on my Facebook page. You just have to scroll. I don't know where it is exactly. Lou says, I'll get some Renew 28 for some flexibility. Yes, this is the best. Rub this on before we do yoga therapy. Yes. And yes, a mat would be good. All right. Well, lots of love, guys. It was great hanging out with you today. I hope you create a beautiful week. You apply these things this week because it's nothing if it's just knowledge in our mind. Like, the magic comes when you apply it to the day-to-day and you catch yourself in the moments and just witness yourself, right? That's all you need to do. So I'll see you on the Telegram chat, and I'll be with you next week. Bye, guys.